December 1971. South Asia witnesses one of the most decisive military victories in modern history. The Pakistani Army collapses in Dhaka. 93,000 soldiers surrender. A new country is born, Bangladesh. India holds prisoners, territory, prestige. In other words, every card in the diplomatic deck. So naturally, the next step was to give most of these cards back. What does a decisive military victory look like? Step 1. A country wins a decisive war. Step 2. The victor reshapes the geopolitical order. Example, after the Second World War, the United States occupied Japan, divided Germany, created alliances like NATO, dominated global finance and security. Punchline, America won the war and then designed the world that followed. Now contrast with India in 1971. India post the war held 93,000 prisoners, controlled 13,000 square kilometers of Pakistani territory, had overwhelming military dominance. By every rule of geopolitics, this was the moment to reshape not only the subcontinent but Southeast Asia itself. So what went wrong at the negotiating table? To understand this, let's look at the teams on both sides of the table. On the Pakistani side, we had Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Aziz Ahmed, who held the grandiloquent title of Secretary General in the Pakistan Foreign Ministry. Bhutto was a wily politician and opportunist, unscrupulous to the core, who had threatened India with the Thousand Years' War and called Indians dogs in the United Nations debate on the Kashmir issue. He had prevented Sheikh Mujibur from becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan despite the Awami League's majority in the Pakistan's Federal Assembly. Betrayed Ayub, to whom he owed his entry into Pakistani politics, and stabbed Yahya in the back to upstage him. Aziz Ahmed's deep animosity towards India was also well known. He played an important role in drafting Operation Gibraltar, pressing Pakistan to take advantage of the volatile situation and send raiders into Indian-held Kashmir to conduct guerrilla activities. Post the 1971 debacle, it was Aziz who convinced Richard Nixon to ensure the supply of weapons to Pakistan to counter Indian hegemony and weapons build-up. An inveterate India baiter, he was allowed a free hand in negotiations. Against this cunning, rabid, India-hating coterie, what did we have? D.P. Dhar, lawyer and minister for the Planning Commission of India, and P.N. Haksar, lawyer, anthropologist, and principal secretary to the Prime Minister. Intelligent, experienced, idealistic, and operating under a very different philosophy. Why the hell were Home and Defense Secretaries left out of this meeting? God only knows. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a mismatch. It was like sending a pair of doves to negotiate with wolves looking for their pound of flesh. India had leverage, POWs, territory, dominance, possible outcomes that India could have hard bargained for. Settlement of Kashmir, border recognition, long-term guarantees. These were real possibilities to be discussed at the time. Instead, prisoners returned, territory returned, Kashmir unresolved. So basically, we brought all the leverage just to show that we had it. India walked into Shimla holding the diplomatic equivalent of a royal flush and then played it like a pair of twos. Bhutto returned from the Shimla conference triumphant, having fully secured his aims, while Indira Gandhi returned to New Delhi nursing a scrap of paper. The line of control was formalized, but with the following legal parlay very smartly inserted into the agreement, without prejudice to the recognized position of either side. Translation: nothing is actually resolved. It's like agreeing to agree while also agreeing to disagree. To be fair, some argue India chose restraint and avoided repetition of another Treaty of Versailles scenario, which by imposing impossibly harsh terms and conditions on Germany, including indemnity for the war, facilitated the emergence of the Nazi regime. Now that is a serious argument. It's just history didn't quite cooperate. What followed was a nightmarish scenario for India. Instead of strategic collapse, Pakistan stabilized. Under Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Pakistan accelerated military rebuilding, nuclear ambitions. As Bhutto so eloquently put it in 1974, we will eat grass, but we will build the bomb. The country that just lost half its territory returned as a strategic rival. The 1971 victory produced a close India-Bangladesh partnership under Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. But in 1975, he was assassinated in a military coup. What followed? Dramatic political change in Bangladesh, shifting geopolitical alignments, greater engagement with China and Pakistan. The country born from India's greatest victory began drifting away from India only 4 years later. Talk about a short honeymoon. The rivalry with Pakistan did not disappear. Instead, it changed form. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, India faced insurgencies in Kashmir, Punjab, parts of the northeast. Many Indian security analysts describe Pakistan's strategy as bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. The biggest fallout of the debacle at Shimla was seen years later in the Kashmir Valley. In 1989-90, militant violence escalated dramatically in the valley. During this period, the Kashmiri Hindu Pandit community became the main targets of forcible conversion and ethnic cleansing and fled the region amid violence and threats. America after Second World War builds alliances, secures dominance, shapes the global order. India after 1971 wins decisively, chooses restraint, leaves the structure undefined. America wins a war and builds NATO. India wins a war and tries to build goodwill. America rewrites the rules of the game. India makes sure everyone feels comfortable playing it. In 1971, India stood at the peak of its power, a moment nations wait centuries for, and then it chose restraint over leverage, diplomacy over dominance, goodwill over strategy. The question is not whether India won the war. That is beyond doubt. The burning question is, why did it not follow the USA playbook and establish itself as a global power bloc? History remembers those who win wars, but it is quite harsh in judging those who win them and don't quite know what to do next. In 1971, India stood at the peak of its power, and then it chose restraint. The question is not whether that was right or wrong. The question is, what was the cost? One victory built a world order. The other became a chapter in a history book. This ain't NCRT. This is Desi History Wala.